would you do if given the opportunity, or at least the opportunity presented itself, to exact revenge upon your jailer torturer? That's a question that's asked in Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident. This is the last picture show with Rahim Khan. The film, of course, has won many accolades. And I think it picked up, where did it go? It picked up was it the Uncertain Regard at Cannes? Or, well, let's just wait for this one to load. Where did you go? Accolades, come on. Okay. Accolades, yeah. It won, the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Not the Uncertain Regard. Jafar Panahi, we've seen with movies like Taxi Tehran, with No Bear, and of course, the context of his life over the past, I would say maybe like 10 years, where he's been at sort of almost daggers drawn with the Iranian government, barring him from making movies. And yet, despite the censure, he made a movie like Taxi Tehran, despite being followed around by the intelligence agencies and whatnot. He's still, he went on to make No Bears. So, there's, first of all, this need of this director to, of course, express himself. There is that. But then, and I'm not saying that he is now a penchant for, making anti-establishment movies, or that he is using his art form, his platform, to simply, stick the Iranian government in the eye. But the thing is that his movies are far more nuanced than that. There's far more to these movies than simply being protest movies. I feel that his films, very much in the vein of Iranian cinema, are explorations of, and to sound cliche, they're explorations of the human condition, they're explorations of society, they're explorations of morality. And then, of course, in a country that is so politically charged, that has seen upheavals ever since the Iranian Revolution. We saw that, of course, most recently when you had those large-scale protests when it came to the death of that lady for wearing the head covering, for not wearing the head covering and all of that stuff. So you saw that it was almost like a mass uprising. And for those of you, not you in the West, but for Western governments, it was a moment that they likened almost to the Arab Spring, that this is it. This is where we finally get rid of the Ayatollahs. But whatever, we're not getting into that. We are, of course, looking at this movie, looking at Jafar Panahi's work, and again returning to this question, something that I feel that is very relevant here in Pakistan as well. Because again, this movie is about the abuse of power, the overreach of the state, what it does to the common man. What it does to innocents, what it does to people who are, may very well be, not, their guilt or their innocence isn't even, it doesn't even get into that. It focuses on the excesses, the extremes to which a government may take to maintain order. And when you do watch a movie like this, it's hard not to call such states, for them not to be considered fascist, for them not to be considered totalitarian. And again, coming back to that question, if you, having suffered at the hands of someone, in this case, it starts off with I believe he's a mechanic, or he has a delivery service or something like that. He has some blue collar type job. and sort of on a very fateful night, somebody rolls into his workshop who he recognizes as the person responsible for his detainment, his torture, and this sets off this chain of events, which again is very bold. It's a statement from a director who, if you do grow up in countries, Iran, Pakistan, many others in Africa, in the Middle East, Eastern Europe and whatnot, USSR, and any of these countries, China even, you are confronted with this reality that the state is oppressive. The state is meant to, of course, in places in Europe, the state is oppressive. The state is out to get you. And in this case, this particular man, he is, I think he was a worker at a factory, and they were protesting the fact that they had not been paid. But the Iranian government, or at least the government in this case, again, I do not know if this is an actual instance, if this happened in their history, or if this is just for the story. They clamped down, and they clamped down really hard. Of course, you had those whole union busters in America as well, Jimmy Hoffa and all of that stuff. But of course, I digress. So in this case, he recognizes this man, and how he recognizes him is because apparently he's wearing a prosthetic, and sort of the squeaking that it makes and that limp that he has reminds this guy. It sort of brings back this sort of torturous memory in this man's mind. And because, as we learn, for the most of their detainment and torture, they were blindfolded. That is just something that he immediately just hears and remembers. And it's used to devastating effect later on at the end of this movie, but I'll get into that in a second. So thus, this man sets out on almost this odyssey where he is almost like it's a monomania with him, where he wants to confirm that, yes, this is indeed that man who did this to me. But then along the way, in order to confirm it, he picks up one person after another, all fellow detainees, all people who had also suffered at the hands of this torturer. And it almost ends up bordering on sort of, on the absurdist, because, here you have, of course, the main person. He then picks up another lady who's a photographer. She's at the time, she's conducting a photo shoot for another lady who's in wedding gown along with her fiancé. She was one of the victims, and then they sort of come on board, and then there's another guy, and it just sort of piles up. So you then have them, and I think it's sort of this moment, that really stood out for me, where their van breaks down in the middle of the road. I think this is sort of Tehran streets. And here you have, and sort of there's this sort of compartment, I think it's like a toolbox, in which they've kind of hid that man who's been drugged. And here you have a lady in a wedding dress, her fiancé, the groom, a lady with dressed up like a photographer. She is one. And they're all sort of trying to push this van down the road, and then people come and start helping and also pushing. So that's where sort of there is humor in this. There's sort of this absurdism to it. But again, it asks you that question. If you were given the opportunity to get even with somebody who had done that to you, would you go ahead and do it? They are presented with yet another sort of moral quandary, in having essentially kidnapped this man. They get a phone call, because apparently he still had his phone on him, from his daughter, who's but a child, and she's crying, and she's like, "Where's my father?" And the they then said, like, oh, he's not here at the moment. We're his friends. What would you like? You're like, oh, you know what? My mother, she's like not well. We really need something. We need to help her. Please come and help. And so here at this sort of, it is this is where sort of it's meant to sort of, a fork in the road, where do we continue on this sort of thing where they want to kill the guy first, get a confession out of him and then kill him. But do we want to do that, or do we help out his family? And, that's there as well. Another funny thing that I found in this movie is that wherever they go, people always ask them for enticements, like, sort of for tips, They're in this parking lot and there are two security guards who feel something is suspicious, so they come and they're like, give us some money. They're in the hospital, the nurse wants money. Everyone seems to wants money from them, and it always seems to come out of the pocket of the main guy, who, again, he set out on his day to like kill this person, and all he's end up doing is running errands and doling out money. We then, of course, come to the climax where finally some of the party, they depart, and it's just now down to the main guy and the photographer lady. And for the longest time, this man, the person they've kidnapped, is denying the fact that he had anything to do with that, or he was that guy. But then he finally does confess. And at one point, he sort of doubles down, and he expresses no remorse, and he says, "What I did, I'll do it again. I'm devoted to the state, and if I felt in any way that you were, sort of jeopardizing or endangering it, I would do whatever I had to." But then, of course, that is immediately followed by, which is where sort of like, these facets, these layers that, Panahi is able to bring into the movie, into all his movies. He says that he just starts crying. He's like, I am ashamed of what I did. I am racked with guilt. And, when he does make this admission, I think that sort of takes the wind out of their sails, where they too realize that sort of perhaps that's all they wanted, that it wasn't revenge that they wanted. They wanted an admission, but then they also wanted an apology. They wanted this man to take responsibility for what he had done to them. The movie ends almost chillingly, and I feel that it is one of the best endings I've seen this year. I think I have to speak about it. It is a spoiler, but this is several days after the incident. They didn't, of course, go ahead with their revenge. They just let the man go. They drive off. We're back with the main guy, and he's sort of in his apartment complex, and apparently he is putting something together. He's loading up his van. So while he's loading up his van, you see this car come in. You don't really pay much attention to it. Be like, is this the same car that guy was driving? We don't know. And then he goes, and sort of the camera follows, and it follows from behind. And he goes, and as he sort of enters his house, he's in the entrance, you hear this squeaking sound, and he stops dead in his tracks, because it's a squeaking sound, that same squeaking sound that the torturer with the prosthetic leg was making. And this man's just frozen. He's rooted there, because he's so, in that moment you can imagine for him, because nothing is said, you just hear that sound. But you can imagine for him that sort of conversation that's going on up here. Should I have let him go? Is he coming to take revenge on me? Is he coming to apologize? What is he doing? Why is this person here? And that's where the movie ends. Beautiful ending. You won't be able to, of course, watch this in the cinema. You can stream it or skip it. I say you must stream it. And for those in Pakistan, you better watch this movie, because it is, it's very, it speaks to our condition as well.